Hello and welcome to another episode of Brewery Towns, the podcast that talks about brewing beer throughout the country. Now, John and I went a little bit deeper on this episode. We talk a lot about government decisions, so I apologize that we throw a lot of dates out there and that I can't say the word legislation. I still can barely say it, but the content is really good and we think you guys are going to enjoy it. Remember to like us on Facebook and Instagram, and stay tuned for another episode soon. Now, Brewery Towns. Hello everyone to another episode of Brewery Towns. My name is Matt and I am one of your co-hosts today, and I did the research for this episode.
And I'm John and I did not do the research for this episode.
I promise he will do some research in the future. But today our city is Greensboro, North Carolina. Have you been there?
I have not, no.
So all of North Carolina is beautiful. I'm like really obsessed with it. You know, from Asheville you have the mountains all the way to the Outer Banks you have the beaches. And Greensboro is like right in the center of that. I went there summer 2018. Me and Tex drove, Tex is my dog. We drove from Texas all the way to Pennsylvania, and we stopped at a few cities, and Greensboro was one of them. So it's in the center of North Carolina. It's the county seat of Guilford County, and it's actually one of the three cities that make up the Piedmont Triad, which is just like three cities that in the general area, and they just call it the Piedmont Triad.
I see.
What doesn't go deeper than that.
We don't need to know the others.
The others, I have it written down. Greensboro is one, High Point is another, and Winston-Salem is the third. You've probably heard of Winston-Salem. Yeah.
Wake Forest is Winston.
Yeah. And it's like a pretty big town, too. They have like an actual downtown.
Okay.
And it's about 100 miles northwest of Charlotte. So it probably takes you an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours to get to the capital of Charlotte. Okay, so currently about 300,000 people live in Greensboro. That makes it the third most popular city in the state. And the metro is about 725. So it's like a pretty decent sized area to live in. There's things to do there. Nickname is the Gate City.
They have a lot of gates.
They have a lot of gates, and I guess it got that way because it's the gateway to the south and the west.
Oh, so maybe they don't actually have a lot of gates.
I feel like every town's the gateway to, like, especially the west.
Else.
You know, they call
it.
Yeah, but
maybe they have a lot of gates.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's hometown to William Sidney Porter. I'd be really impressed if you knew who this was. I didn't know.
I don't think so.
So it's the poet known as O. Henry. Ever heard of him? O. Henry?
No.
He's got a couple famous short stories, and one is The Ransom of Red Chief, where a boy was kidnapped, but then he ended up being so obnoxious that the robbers paid his parents to take him back. And I guess it's like this really popular story.
What's the moral?
I don't know. I haven't read it.
Don't be obnoxious.
Or be obnoxious. Yeah.
Ah, that's better.
I mean, that's the most famous person I could find from here, which is surprising because it has a lot of people.
Sure,
yeah. It was founded, it was first established, we'll say, as Cape Fair in 1754. The Quakers from Pennsylvania came down here and they were seeking religious asylum. And so they kind of took this land that was owned or settled by the Suara tribe. Suara.
Yeah.
So established as Cape Fair, and then after the Revolutionary War, it was renamed Greensboro for Major General Nathaniel Greene. I don't think he was from the area,
I don't know.
but
Is it probably also Greensville is also North Carolina? Maybe it's named after the same guy?
Could be.
Probably.
Could be. I like Cape Fair.
Yeah, you want to change it back?
I don't know. Should we start a petition?
Yeah, change.org.
Okay. To sign that petition, go to our Patreon account. But population was slow. It was, they first got down there in the 1750s, and in 1870, so 120 plus years later, there was only 500 people living in the city. Super slow moving, and even 100 years later in 1870, they were still down there mostly for religious reasons.
Just being away from everybody else.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, because they were down there for religious reasons, there's not a very strong or rich brewing culture in the 19th century.
Easy to picture.
And part of that was because of the government. They made a lot of decisions to prohibit some of this growth. So in 1874, they voted to prohibit saloon licenses.
Okay.
And then 2 years later, Greensboro was added to that list, so they didn't have any saloons. But then it was repealed 2 years later because I think people were starting to revolt.
Yeah,
because during this time, Greensboro was growing. You know, it was 500 in 1870. By 1900, it was 10,000. So, you know, and, you know, if you have saloons, it brings in commerce, it brings in business, so
Sure.
it's in your best interest. And so, North Carolina's Anti-Saloon League, we talked about anti-saloon leagues before.
I do remember
Theirs
this.
began in 1895, which is pretty early if you think Prohibition didn't start until 1920.
Yeah,
These
they were
guys-
fighting for a while.
Yeah, and it was the most popular temperance group down there. So in 1903, the Watts Act was passed, and this banned manufacture and sale of spirituous liquors outside incorporated towns.
So if you're in the towns, it's okay?
If you're in the towns, it's okay, but
Okay.
if you're in, you know, the countryside, it's not okay.
You can't make it or sell it.
Yeah. Which is really interesting. I don't know the logic behind that. And then a couple of years later, the Ward Act was initiated, and this expanded the Watts Act to towns of less than 1,000 inhabitants. So even if you were
they're
an incorporated
baby
town...
steps up.
Mhm.
Of like, not y'all either.
Yeah,
Not y'all either. Okay.
which is sad.
Sure.
And so...
Spoiler alert, though. I think none of this
Matters?
goes through.
Oh, no,
after,
no,
like,
yeah, sure.
Prohibition's repealed, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, this
So,
is...
there's hope.
This is the build-up to Prohibition.
Yeah.
And so when the Ward Act was enacted, it affected 68 counties, but luckily Greensboro was not one of those. They still were able to have some
Is that
type
too
of...
big?
I think because they were too big, yeah.
Okay.
You know, they had over 1,000 people at that time. And so in 1907, the same year that this act passed, somebody named Carrie Amelia Nation visited the area on her national tour. Carrie Amelia Nation, have you ever heard of her?
No.
So she was a formidable temperance movement leader.
So her tour was just touring around.
Mm-hmm. And she would give speeches talking about how temperance should be welcomed by everyone.
Sure.
But she did get a little crazy. She would do these things called hatchetations, like a hatchet, like an axe.
Yeah.
And so she would go into saloons and bars across the Midwest and even into the South Carolina and North Carolina area, and she would take a hatchet and just go to town inside the bars, while women behind her were singing hymns.
God's work.
Yeah, that's exactly. It all ties back. Mm-hmm.
So she would just like on the walls, like mirrors. What do we?
I think like
just
people, not people.
Okay.
Just like maybe some of the furniture and definitely the bottles.
Oh, so she's like, just breaking.
She's
things.
going crazy.
Okay, that's very kind of her.
So I wish there was more information about her. Her childhood home is a national historic place in Kansas, which is pretty cool. But then bars started to display signs that said all nations are welcome except Carrie.
Clever.
Isn't that really
like
clever?
It.
I
She shouldn't have had that
love
last
it.
name if she didn't want him to do that.
I know.
You know
I know. I want to get a sign like that. Just that should be
Also,
a
do
t-shirt.
you think they meant that at that time?
Should be a t-shirt. No, absolutely not.
They didn't really mean it.
But maybe
all nations that are white men.
yeah, but maybe Carrie brought them all together. You know, you rally around a hatred of one enemy.
Oh, maybe. Probably
So-
not. But maybe.
Probably not. You're right. So the Greensboro Patriot wrote about her, as far as we can judge, the cause of temperance has not been materially stimulated by her sojourn of a week or more in the state.
Okay, she's hanging out, and they're just like, this isn't working.
Yeah.
Okay.
It was really hard to probably read papers back in the day, just some of the words they use. I mean, it's
Words
hard
are
for...
big words.
Yeah,
Oof,
yeah.
Big words, you know?
So, North Carolina completely banned alcohol the next year, though, in 1908. Mm-hmm.
They're
So
like, this
12...
doesn't work, and then...
Yep, 12 years before the nation
Everyone else,
went
yeah.
dry. Yeah, and this timeline is all on this nice website called Well Crafted NC, and they take the history of North Carolina and they have done stories about certain breweries. They have a timeline that talks about all the legislation
Yeah.
that is passed. So that was a really good site, and it's free, and I think it's run by UNC Greensboro.
What was it called again?
Well Crafted NC.
Well crafted.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So yeah, thank you for doing that research and for making it free. So Prohibition was not kind to North Carolina. Saloons in downtown Greensboro, there were long stretches of them, but they were all closed. Some of them, however, found a loophole. The loophole was that if you called your bar a men's social club,
Right.
then you could still
Because
provide
it's private
alcohol.
now?
Mhm.
I see. That's still There's still places that do that, I think, in dry counties around the country.
Yeah.
So if you can afford the membership fee,
Exactly.
then it's okay.
Exactly, but I think they were pretty lenient. And it was a men's social club that I was reading that, women were invited to. It was just...
I see.
It was just a bar.
It was a bar that had a cover.
Yeah.
It's just a bar with a cover.
Yeah.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. So if you didn't want to do that, houses in this area became centers of alcohol trade. So patrons would come up in the darkness of night, and then they would wait for a runner from the house to come, and then they would give them the alcohol, and then they would drive away. So it's kind of like this sneaky operation that they did at certain houses in the neighborhood, but they had to change them pretty often because...
So they get caught. Right.
Yeah. But that'd be fun. You just drive up to a house, you have this like little kid probably running out, like really harmless, and probably has like a package, and when you can't tell what's in it. Just puts
I'm
it in
sure
the
it
car.
was like bottles clinking, and it was very
Yeah,
obvious.
well, yeah. But if you're not like close by,
Yeah, right.
And I'm sure if they recorded it down, it was probably pretty successful. So Prohibition actually remained into effect in North Carolina until 1935.
When was Prohibition repealed nationally?
1933.
Okay, so it was a couple years they hung on.
Mm-hmm. So they started 1908 until 1935, so it's 27 years of this crap. And then once Prohibition was repealed, the North Carolina Alcohol Beverage Control Commission was founded, and they raised alcohol in the state from 3.2 to 6%. So they were doing like an Oklahoma thing where you could only
for what was allowed
brew 3.2%. Yeah.
So was that was after 33? You said
33 was national.
Oh.
Repeal. 35 was.
So after 35, then they could go up to the 3%.
6%.
Oh, during that time it was 3% or less.
3.2%. I guess it was like that beforehand because there were breweries in North Carolina. Just not in Greensboro, but there were in North Carolina, so I guess they were making 3.2%, and after it was repealed, they said, oh, you can go up to 6%. Yeah.
Okay.
So one brewery in Greensboro was founded after Prohibition. It was called Premier Brewing Company, founded in 1935 by someone called J. Berg, like J. Berg. We don't know his first name.
J. Berg.
Maybe John.
Could be John. Oh.
And so they had a $500,000 facility plan. They advertised it in the newspaper, but by 1937, there's no record of it. So
they fizzled out somehow.
It fizzled out, and people think they never probably opened. They never brewed any beer. But they tried.
Like, we're going to be a brewery.
Yeah.
And then just didn't have the startups funds.
Yeah, it's like how we've been like, oh, we're going to start a podcast.
Yeah, right.
It's and exactly no one thinks we're actually going to do it.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So suck it, J. Berg. We're better than you. So the story...
don't get ahead.
So the brewing history of Greensboro, North Carolina, I mean, it really starts a few decades ago in 1990. Okay. There's really no history because of where they're at before that. So in 1990, a man named Gary Vickers started the Loggerhead Brewing Company, and all of his products followed the Reinheitsgebot. Have you heard about that before? A lot of people talk about it. So it's an old Bavarian law that goes back to the 16th century, and Reinheitsgebot essentially means purity order. Mm-hmm. So they put this in effect. So your beer, you can only use hops, malt, and water.
Yeah, okay. I've heard of this. I didn't
know. Eventually you could use yeast as well. But they enacted this because they wanted to prevent price competition, and some people think it was because of religious conservatism. If this beer doesn't get too crazy, you won't be a drunkard.
I see.
Yeah. And then some people think that it ensured that there was enough product to make bread as well.
So they didn't take all of the wheat.
Yeah. Yeah. So that really limits you, though, if you're going to follow this. It's really interesting, especially in this area. A couple of the breweries do this, but you can really just make lager and...
Yeah, not a lot of beer options.
Yeah.
Sure.
One other note I have just down here, really small. Some people think they enacted this because they didn't want the brewers to use plants that were used in pagan rituals.
So it was really religious because of the pagans.
Yeah.
It can't be pagan.
Isn't that interesting?
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so anyway.
It's not cool. It's interesting.
Yeah.
That's right.
So they followed this Reinheitsgebot, but they made Gate City Ale and General Green Lager.
Was it green?
I hope not.
Maybe only on like St. Patty's Day or something.
Yeah, I don't like that when they do that.
I don't. But usually they're like $1.
I know.
It's like $1 green beer.
Well, for St. Patrick's Day.
Yeah.
And well, now there's like purple beer. There's like they make every color beer now. It's just they put like sparkles in it. It's really interesting.
Okay, so the green
Sorry,
ale, I'm assuming, is named after the town,
yep.
or the person, the town.
And Gate City Ale, too. Named after the
right.
nickname.
I forgot they don't have the gates.
So the Gate City Ale must have been really popular because in 1995, they took down the Loggerhead name and they just went with Gate City Brewing.
Oh, they rebranded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Rebranded. And their location was in an old ham sandwich shop. And so before these breweries came about, Ham's was really the only place to get some beer. Get some fairly local beer. Yeah. So 1995 they did that. At this time another brewery was growing. It was called Spring Garden Brewery. And they were right by Guilford College, it's kind of up north, and they were in a Friendly's off Franklin restaurant, an old restaurant that they renovated. And they were really popular because in 2007 they moved to the outskirts of town and they opened a big new brewery, and the owner, Bill Sherrill, actually had plans to make this brewery like a small Bavarian like town.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because he also followed the Reinheitsgebot too.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting because
yeah, I mean that's not. You think
no one? I don't think
like
anyone
really
cares.
Competing with, yeah, right.
And it's just like there's.
A little different.
I feel like there weren't.
But, I mean, obviously it worked for him.
Yeah, but I feel like there weren't many Germans down here either. Like the Quakers came down. If like Germans didn't have religious persecution, I feel like.
I don't know. Sure, I mean, surely they did at some point, but who knows?
Yeah. So anyway, they moved outskirts of town, and their popular beer is the Red Oak Lager, and that got a 3.72 on Untapped, and I think that's the only one that they bottle. Like that's like if you have Yingling, you have the lager. You know, if you have Red Oak, you have the Red Oak Lager.
The Gate City, you have the Red Oak.
You're getting confused.
Am I getting? It sounds like I am.
Gate City was in 1995. This is a different one.
What's it called?
This one was called Spring Garden, and then when they moved to build that new complex, they changed it to Red Oak.
Oh, I missed that. Okay, I'm sorry.
So it's interesting because they both rebranded based off, I think, of their popular beer. Because Lager had changed to Gate City after Gate City Ale, and Spring Garden changed to Red Oak after the Red Oak Lager.
Look, pick a name.
I know.
Pick a name and stick with it. Okay?
Well, I mean, I guess if it works, Gate City, I'm pretty sure is closed now. I couldn't get a specific date, but Red Oak is still going strong.
Have they changed their name again?
No, Red Oak. I think they're satisfied with Red Oak.
Okay,
I like that name for a brewery.
It's a good name,
yeah.
But it seems like that pattern is like, what was the best selling beer this year?
Yeah.
Now we're gonna change our name again.
Well, it's a lot of money too if you're gonna change everything.
Yeah, think of all the stickers wasted.
I know.
Wow.
So those were the two ones that were founded in the 1990s, like really before the craft movement really took off. The next one that was founded in 2004, Natty Green's Brewing Company. Again, named after General Green. Yeah, I told you they were obsessed with these people. And this was downtown, and they've been really popular. They've had 2 new breweries since. They kept the name, though.
Same name.
But 2 new facilities because they've just been so popular. They produced a lot of sours and ales. One of the ones that I wanted to highlight is Buckshot Amber Ale. Oh, just like that name. 3.44. I feel like it's hard to get a really good rating if you just have an amber or a lager. Just because it's just a really basic, easy drinking beer.
Yeah, people probably don't rate them as much if they're not wild.
Yeah.
You know, in one way or the other. So.
Yeah, so good for them. So they were in 2004, and we had them and we had Red Oak. And so in 2014, the Pop the Cap law was passed, and this raised the percentage of alcohol from 6% to 14.9%.
It was 6% this whole time?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, wow.
So maybe that's why they were following it, too, because...
Because it was... that makes sense, sure.
Yeah.
Because if you did something else, you'd have to, like, manufacture a lower percentage, and this way you could stay true to historical, but then also not...
And, like, who wants an IPA that's, like, 5.5%?
Not me.
Right? That defeats the purpose of drinking them.
But they pushed it up to 14 in...
2014. Isn't that crazy? Like
maybe every year they'll go with the year?
Well, I think they're at 14.9 now.
Oh, okay.
But I feel like once you get to 15%, like, that's a heavy beer.
Yeah.
15%.
Now, okay, but was this on just brewing? So you can now... You could distill higher alcohol percent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
It was just beer.
Really, really odd. And, you know, I think they had to work really hard just to get that done.
Now, talking about St. Patrick's Day, if you have, like, a car bomb, you know, you take your liquor, you put it in the beer, Is it a beer that's now higher than 6%? Is that illegal?
I think it was probably legal to drink, but if you sold it like that...
You have to be like, no, here's your shot,
yeah.
here's your beer. Mm-hmm. I'm not selling a 12% beer because it's a shot.
Right.
That's interesting.
Yeah, but it's like super late. I mean, 2014. Like,
I know,
it's like a few years ago.
Yeah.
So after that happened, I wanted to point that out. Brewing, the breweries really just started to pop up everywhere in Greensboro. Because you have more... These people were probably home brewing, and then this happened. They're like, oh, we can finally like make a business.
Yeah, they can sell it now. Sure.
So we're just going to go through just some of the breweries that are there. 2014, Gibbs 100 Brewing Company was founded. And so 100 was a subdivision of a county that supported homesteads.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's why they called it that. And the owners are Mark and Sasha Gibb. So it's like, this is Gibbs 100. This is our
family that was brewing it. Yeah.
And so the beer that I want to highlight, Guilty Party ESB 3.63. It got the gold medal at the 2015 Great American Beer Festival in the extra special bitter category.
Wow, winner.
Mm-hmm. A lot of winners in this town, like a really good beer town, which is kind of fun because it started off like nothing, and now it's grown to like this. Yeah. But if you look into like Asheville's history, it's really impressive now. But everywhere in North Carolina has this story. Yeah. Let's see. So the city council actually amended the definition of a brewery. At first, they couldn't be, I think, within downtown or within city limits. Maybe they had to be a brew pub. So Natty Green served food. So also at this time, they said, "Oh, breweries you can set up in this area as well."
And you don't have to have all these other restrictions.
Exactly. It was just like really, really bizarre. That's why the timeline on the Well-Crafted NC is really helpful. If you want to learn more about this. Right. Okay, next brewery is kind of more of a restaurant. It seems like it's more of like a BJ's, but just a local BJ's. So like it's just like they make beer, but it's just...
Do they also boil all of their food?
I hope so.
Yum.
But it's called Pig Pounder Brewery. It was named after a 16-ounce pounder, one of the bigger beers, at Daryl's Woodfire Grill, which had a pig logo for the restaurant.
So the Pig Pounder.
So Pig Pounder, that's where it got
that could be taken a different way.
Yeah, I know.
Which would be not so fun.
Yeah, so I hope that story is where they got it from.
Me too.
And they do English-style ales, and the Boar Brown Ale got a 3.72. But I've seen reviews, people were like, oh, we went there and it was just like a restaurant. So like maybe there's just like...
I see what you mean.
Like a couple beers.
They've got some beers, but then they're... Nice.
So if you...
But they're still brewing.
Yeah, and they probably have like really good food too.
Sure, right.
Okay, so in 2015, Prayer Brewing was started by Calder and Nicole Prayer. That's a cool name. And its location, it was in an old television showroom and repair shop, which is pretty cool. And this is one of the ones that we went to, me and Tex. They're dog friendly, and it was really cool. It was kind of like dark on the inside, but they had like leather couches and rugs and like a really big bar. And you usually don't see places with couches that allow dogs inside.
Yeah.
But it was like 100 degrees out that day, so I really liked this place. And they had like really cool stickers, and it was just like a really cool place. Like a lot of like dark wood on the wall. It was super cool.
Like curled up on the couch.
Yeah.
Took a nap.
Yeah. I mean, after a long drive, he really enjoyed it.
He gets tired of sitting in the car. He wants to go sit on the couch.
Yeah. We've all been there. And so they made a beer that's called Thai Shrimp Goza, and it was brewed with dried shrimp, cucumber, and grapefruit.
That sounds disgusting.
It only got a 3.28. So I don't think it worked.
Maybe some people liked it.
Yeah. Kudos for trying.
Yeah.
Kudos for trying.
Shrimp?
Dried shrimp, cucumber, and grapefruit. I told you, they put everything in beer now. Like, I wonder what it tastes like. I don't know.
I would try it.
Yeah, I would try like a taster. I wouldn't get a whole...
And maybe it's good if you have a good food pairing with it or something.
Yeah. But just by itself.
But it sounds quite gross. But I haven't had it. I won't judge.
So when I was doing the research for this, I looked up every brewery, and I was saddened to see that these guys closed in February 2020.
Really? I guess they...
I don't know what happened.
They all the competition in there.
They were one of my favorite breweries. So that was pretty sad. But they were located right across the street from another brewery called Joymongers Brewing Company. And me and Tex, it was literally just right across the intersection.
You hopped in one, you went to the other.
And they allow dogs to... it's a lot brighter of a space, lots of windows. Lots of white on the walls. Their logo is black, but they do like a lot of pink too. So it's like it was a cool place inside. And they were founded just in 2016 by one of the former Natty Green's head brewers.
Oh, okay.
So he's probably like, oh, I want to start my own brewery now.
Now, is Natty Green's still open at this
Yep,
time?
Natty Green's is still open.
And he was just like, I'm going to go do my own, own take on
things. Yeah, so good for them. They also now have, Prayer, they closed their facility, but Joymonger, they have a barrel hall in Winston-Salem now. So they're doing good. I don't, maybe Prayer wasn't distributing or...
Well, they also put shrimp in the beer.
Yeah, and maybe they just got a little too crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. So the beer that I wanted to highlight is called Foeder, F-O-E-D-E-R. How would you say that? Foeder? Foeder.
Just like that. Foeder.
So this beer is Foeder beer Tropisch. And I got a 3.93, so... I mean, closer to a 4. That's really good. And so a Foeder is essentially a large barrel, over 160 gallons.
Oh, okay.
Like really big, and they're more prevalent in Europe. But if you look online, you still really can't get much information. But what I think of it's the opposite of a firkin. You know how they have like the small barrels that they call firkins. This is a Foeder. This is just the big
firkin Foeder.
Yeah, that's right. And when me and my girlfriend went to Europe, we went to this winery and they had barrels that were like twice as tall as I was. Oh, so really? I think those were probably Foeder barrels.
I see.
And they're huge.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any. I don't know why you would use them over a regular one. I couldn't find any advantages.
Sure there's a reason,
yeah.
Right,
But the largest one of these barrels was in France that used 200 trees and took 18 years to finish.
Wow.
Is that crazy?
That is crazy. 18 years?
Yeah.
Just to make it?
I know, yeah. Just to make it. So
oh, man.
It must have some qualities.
Yeah, I don't know. Something.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just... That one maybe just for show,
Yeah.
But
the French, yeah. Okay, so just a few more here. I like this name. 1111.
1111.
1111.
Oh, yeah, that rolls off the tongue nicely.
Mm-hmm. And it's a very, very small brewery. It's located across from the Greensboro Coliseum complex, which they play a lot of basketball games. I don't know if Greensboro... I think they have some amateur teams too. But that's where the ACC does their March conference tournament.
I see.
Mm-hmm. And they use that a lot. But if you go to this brewing, you have to park in the parking lot of the complex. And they only have 6 beers. They've been around since 2018. They only have 6 beers on tapped.
So they really know what... This is what we do.
Yeah. And the one 7 come 11 IPA 3.83. So they're probably pretty good.
Yeah.
1111. So the next one, Little Brother Brewing, again in 2018, and the head brewer is Stephen Monahan. And he graduated from the Master Brewing program at the Siebel Institute.
Where's that?
So there's one in Chicago and then there's one in Munich, and so they've been educating brewers for 140 years, and if you want to do the Master Brewer program, it's a 20-week course, half in Chicago, half in Munich.
Oh, wow.
And then I think they are the people who do the Cicerone test.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
That?
Mm-hmm.
I see.
I think you go to Chicago to take that, and I'm pretty sure you go to this institution.
I see. They're like, they know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they're located downtown, and the product that I wanted to highlight is called Civil Rest Hefeweizen.
Civil Rest.
Rest, yeah, I like that. And, it pays homage, 3.79, pays homage to, the Greensboro sit-ins in the 1960s.
Right, yeah.
That was a big place for civil rights. So I like Civil Rests. I like that name.
Yeah, I like a half, too.
Yeah.
If it's highly rated.
Yeah, again, kind of a German beer, so none of these people are doing the Reinheitsgebot anymore, but...
It's still only the one, Red Oak.
Red Oak,
so,
mm-hmm. And so the last brewery that opened was 2019. It was called South End Brewing Company. It was founded just by a husband and a wife. And it was located in the old Gibbs 100 Brewing Company because they moved out to a bigger facility. These guys moved into their building.
I see.
And their product that I wanted to highlight, the Burrow Brown Ale. So Greensboro, the Burrow Brown Ale. 3.78. And... I was mistaken one more. Oh. So I what is that, like 10? Yeah, like 10 brew. I mean, in this town, Odin Brewing Company, and this is a cool story. Owners John and Jan Odin And their location is in the Old Buffalo Rock bottling plant, which was operated by William Odin, their grandfather. Oh, wow. Or one of their grandfathers. Yeah. I think they're married. I don't think they're brother and sister.
I see.
So they took their grandfather's old building and made it a brewery.
That's really neat.
Which is really cool. And, I put this down there especially for you. The one beer that I picked out. Guava Catch 'em All Goza.
Oh, clever. I like it.
Yeah. 3.82, so it's probably pretty good. And we love a clever name for a beer. That's right. I think that's the best part. I hate when breweries just have, like, generic names. Like, I feel like that would be my favorite part of owning a brewery, is coming up with the names.
I'm fine if it's just like, that? This is our Hefeweizen. I like that.
Okay.
But I do think it's like, either just like, this is the Hefeweizen, this is the brown, or give them good names.
Yeah.
Right? Don't make them like half cool, half plain.
Yeah.
Or if you're going
to
do cool ones, it has to be good.
Yeah. But Guava Catch 'em All.
Yeah, I love it. Guava Catch 'em All.
So if you go to Greensboro now, I mean, you have your choice of breweries you want to go to. You could probably do a whole weekend there.
Yeah, for sure.
And, Winston-Salem and High Point both have a number of breweries, too.
And they're all close by.
Mm-hmm. So it's just turned into, like, a beer mecca. Carrie Nation's probably rolling over in her grave right now.
Oh, good. I hope so.
But hopefully we'll do an episode in the future on Asheville.
Yeah, for
just
sure.
Because they have it's crazy there. Maybe we'll get there soon too. But that's all I got for this one.
Yeah,
what do you think? Cool. It was like a little bit more like legislation.
I'm sorry, what?
A little bit more government decisions. I don't know if there's a word for that.
They were waiting on the being allowed to brew these higher beers and stuff like that.
So even though you don't really have a rich brewing history, there's still this history because there's a reason why you didn't, and I think that's just as interesting. Sure,
yeah. I would assume I didn't do the research for this one. I assume that those legislations were kept in place, lobbied for by the major companies whose beers, the national brands whose beers are under that mark, and so they're like, yeah, definitely don't allow anything higher because that's all we sell.
Yep.
So, but it's good that it's higher now, and you can have these people doing their own and having a lot more.
I mean, it shows. Yeah, it probably brings in so much money for the city. Yeah,
and it's just cool. It's an artistic expression, doing all these different types of beers and stuff like that. So it's good that they're allowing that. Yeah, that's a good thing.
Yeah, so we probably butchered most of this, so definitely go to Well Crafted NC. Good website. And then Greensboro News and Record? I was going to say Record. The Greensboro News and Record. They had a lot of good articles on the more recent breweries, too.
Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, well, that's all we got today. We'll see you next time.